Podcasts are pretty common. So what makes the Uncommon podcast uncommon? Well, it's all in our name. I'm your host, Noah Weiss, and we at Uncommon Sports Group understand the unique pressures and temptations that come with a career in the sport industry. We provide uncommon training that helps you successfully navigate common challenges. Hit the follow button on this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Check out our website and become uncommon. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Uncommon Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Weiss, and I'm excited to welcome two of our USG members onto the show today, Nick Hunt and Kyle Richardson. Nick is currently with the Aspire Group based out of Purdue Athletics as a Revenue and Development Associate, and Kyle is with Penn State Athletics as the Assistant Director of Development. And today we'll be talking about managing job transitions in the sport industry. Nick and Kyle, how are you?
Doing great. Appreciate it.
Got two Big Ten guys in here. So
absolutely,
we'll see if it's a battle or if it's mutual. So
absolutely, it's great to see you guys. Thanks for being on today. And you guys just have recently in the past year landed new roles. So if you don't mind sharing, how did you guys go about finding and landing your present roles, and what challenges did you face in the job search process?
Kyle, you want to go ahead? Most recent?
Yeah, sure. So, gosh, I guess I have to go back to last July when I first heard about this opportunity here at Penn State. I was finishing up grad school down at University of Central Florida, going into my last semester down there. Knew that I wanted to get back into development in college athletics. I had a pretty good idea of the career path that I was looking to pursue and the jobs I was looking at. Mm-hmm. And ended up had a connection that was here at Penn State who fortunately got a promotion back at his alma mater, and someone that I'm close to. So he kind of let me know that, obviously I was pumped to find out that he had gotten that promotion. Mm-hmm. And he let me know, hey, look, my job is now open, and I know this is something that you're interested in. So I would recommend you take a look at it. So I was looking at a couple different opportunities, ended up getting an interview on campus. So came on campus to State College back in August of 2021 and felt good about the interview. And then the job search ended up getting put on hold for 2 months while I was finishing my last semester and obviously trying to land a full-time job because graduation was coming up in December. Mm-hmm. So decided to look at some other opportunities and interviewed at some other places, all while, hoping and praying that something would come from this one because I really wanted it.
Yeah. And
so 2 months later, I guess maybe 3, in November, finally the search was unfrozen and they were able to offer me the position.
That's awesome.
So accepted within a couple days, and I've been fortunate to be here. Started in January, so I've been here now for 3 months in my current position, and I'm loving it.
That's awesome, brother. Appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, as far as me, mine's a little bit crazier, I guess. Well, I don't know. You had 2 months on hold, so I can only imagine. But so I actually applied here for Purdue with the John Purdue Club. So that is the fundraising arm for Purdue Athletics for essentially a different role. So one day I got a message from my now boss who works for the Aspire Group, and he said, hey, just want to let you know, unfortunately, the job you originally applied for, we promote within. However, the guy who was in your or is getting promoted, came from this position, saw you're looking to get started in fundraising. Mm-hmm. So, that's essentially where I got the call, and obviously there was no guarantees. He just said, we'd like to interview you. Yeah. And, the rest is history. So I've been with the Aspire Group here for 10 months last Wednesday. Time has definitely flown by. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting story of how you can apply and, whether it's external promotion or similar to Kyle and, his buddy ended up getting promotion. And then I can now say I'm buddies with the guy who got promotion here. That was essentially how I wound up here at Purdue.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing. I think what a big takeaway from both of your stories is that the job search process and the hiring process is not always linear. It can, in your mind, work out a certain way, and it doesn't work out that way. And so really handling that is something that I see in both of you guys. And that's really an awesome testimony as well to just your faith in Christ and just being able to navigate those tough challenges of who knows, when you might unfreeze and you be able to have the opportunity, Kyle, to land that position, than Nick initially being told that they promote from within. And so really just being patient, allowing the Lord to move and put you in the right place. So it's awesome testimonies, guys. Appreciate you sharing that. And as you guys kind of mentioned, it is super exciting to land a new position, but it does come with a lot of change, a lot of things in life that become new and different. So what did you both do to prepare for your roles once you accepted the position?
Start finding an apartment.
Start looking.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a good place to start.
No doubt. First, I definitely always tell people celebrate, take that time to realize that change is being made in your life. You busted your tail to get there. So definitely take time to celebrate, call your friends, your family, whichever's obviously more comfortable for you. So definitely celebrate a success like that. But then, as far as preparing, really get in contact with your boss, if your peers, if you'd like, and just, I always say, see what their expectations are when you are coming in day one. Obviously, I would say, in our industry, people are very caring and understanding as far as how quick you may have to get to that role. For me, it was within 3 weeks, after I had landed the job. So it was very fast paced by all means. And so, that's where my boss was able to get in contact with my coworkers. USG community had a couple of contacts for me as well. Find places to stay, areas that are, recommended, obviously food. But these are little things. And then that's where you usually can start building the relationships as well and find out where people's interests are. Once you get that role, celebrate, really start getting your chickens aligned per se. And, that's only going to help alleviate a little bit of stress, once you start the job. And then, we could keep going on and on about furniture and all that fun stuff. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what Nick mentioned. Like I mentioned, I was in Orlando, finishing up my grad school. So, and that wasn't until December when I graduated. So I accepted the job in November. But obviously still had a lot of loose ends to tie up while I was down there, and actually was working on the side an internship with the Citrus Bowl. And Florida Citrus Sports. So that was really cool that I got to finish that out. And that was on New Year's. So I started here, like I said, middle of January. So I had about 2 weeks in between transition time from when I was still wrapping up grad school and some part-time jobs when I started full-time. So, I would say after you accept a job, obviously going through the interview process, you've had to put a lot of preparation into that to start, right? And so you've already gotten a pretty good sense, you would hope, right, after you accept a job that what you're getting into, and what the job entails, and you've been pretty diligent in your preparation that way. So I took assurance in that I had done a lot of legwork beforehand, right, to get the job. And so once you accept the job, and after I'd kind of moved on and said, all right, now I'm ready to start this full-time job. For me, it was just getting to know Penn State and just do a lot of background research on the university, figure out where the university's been from an athletic standpoint. Who are the executive staff members, and making sure you're looking at the staff directory to, recognize some faces. If you're on campus and maybe you run by one, maybe you're able to introduce yourself because that's someone that I should definitely be introducing myself to. So that's what I would probably say. There's the preparation after you accept is a lot for me, just doing your more background research on the institution, because then once you get in the job, that's when you start learning, right? And there's a lot, obviously, to get acclimated.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you guys sharing that. And I think too, Kyle, I loved your point about really just doing some research. It's like watching film. If you're an athlete, you got to prepare and know what you're getting yourself into. To your point, the people that you're going to have to meet and talk to, and be able to really navigate those differences that are, you go into a new organization. Who are the people that you need to really align yourself with and get to know and start building relationships with is huge. So appreciate you sharing that too. And I think another big point, Kyle, that you brought up was you do a lot of the legwork prior. I think sometimes we forget that the point of internships and the point of grad school is to prepare ourselves for that first full-time role or for that next jump in the industry. And so you're already prepared. I think having that assurance, not only in yourself, but in your identity in Christ, are key in really navigating that challenge. And then, Nick, your point on really just kind of acclimating yourself to the local area. You mentioned apartments and restaurants, and that's a huge part of it as well. It's where you're going to be living. What is that area like? And becoming really accustomed to that, I think, will alleviate some of those issues that if you didn't do that, it'd be a lot harder to feel comfortable in that place. So well said by both of you. Absolutely. Yeah. And obviously there's challenges once you actually start the role. I mean, it's one thing to, prepare yourself to start than to actually jump into the new job. So how did you guys navigate some of these challenges and kind of share what were those challenges once you jumped in to those new roles?
Yeah, I can start with this one. So the first thing I'll mention is, as an assistant director of development, typically Penn State has multiple people in this position. Going back several years, it's 2, 3, at some points even 4. It's such a large athletics program, 31 sports, so it's a lot to fundraise for.
Yeah.
When I got here, I was one of one, and still am. Still am one of one. We actually just hired another assistant director of development, and she'll be starting here in a couple weeks. Looking to hire one more to get 3. But that, in and of itself, it presents a challenge, right? You're coming into a new environment, and typically in this role, you'd have some other people who had been in this role for a little bit of time who can kind of show you the ropes and can help you get better situated into the position. And luckily, everyone here, I know there's no one in my position, but we have a really great major gift staff who the job is pretty similar to what I do in some regards. And so they're very helpful in coaching and providing tips. So that's been very helpful. The other kind of wrench that was thrown at me a little bit, and certainly not the easiest way to start, but I made it 4 days into my job, and my boss who hired me told me he was leaving to take another job at another school. Was really, really excited for him. It was a job back at his alma mater, and you can tell it really, really meant a lot. And so you're just excited for him and that career transition. And obviously that's something in sports that happens. Like we've talked about, people are able to leave, and that's great. They get promotions. So for me, I was starting this job without someone a direct supervisor, pretty much. For the last several months. So I've had to figure out a lot, a little bit on my own. But again, everyone here has been super, super helpful. And the other thing I'll mention is that it's given me more opportunity to talk with other people on our staff, and ask them questions versus always going to, if I still had a direct supervisor here, always going to that person and asking, him or her questions. Right. So I've gotten to build relationships with some other people on our staff, which I don't know if I necessarily had that opportunity. If the person who hired me was still here. So there's you can look at it in different ways, right? And so for me, that's a positive that I've chosen to focus on, and I think it's helped me so far.
Absolutely, brother. It's great.
No doubt. Yeah, for me, I can't emphasize it, and I'm sure Kyle would say the same thing. Product knowledge, product knowledge, product knowledge. So, we came from different stops, myself, most recently Nebraska and the Southern Conference, Kyle from UCF. But, you come to another Big Ten school, there's a different culture, different way of how they go about, fundraising and priority points or parking. So, those are just some of the other emphasis that we can have, but we're on the front lines. For Kyle and I, we are the touch point for the athletics department and, the University, Penn State, Purdue communities. That's people call us to get a gauge of, what's going on, but also we're the voices. So I couldn't emphasize, from my boss and my fellow coworkers as far as helping me with training, once I started and really getting adjusted to the different conversations we may have. Now, truth be told, you can have all the training in the world, but once you pick up that phone the first time, it's whether you know it or not. What I will say, though, that's very graceful, from a Christian standpoint, a lot of, folks are interested in finding out why we came to Penn State, why we came to Purdue. Like, always emphasize saying, hey, I'm new. Because I just say, hey, I come from the Carolinas, well, why the heck did you make your way up to West Lafayette? That's always going to be their first question usually. So, but I can't emphasize like the product knowledge as far as the challenges that are to be had, just because, similar to Kyle, if I did have questions, who would I go to have those answered? Who could I have that training with? Who all has the touch points with these different things? Because in fundraising, I mean, we're involved with marketing, ticket sales, event management. We get to be a part of a lot of cool things and build those relationships. So as far as navigating that, just being patient. Don't rush anything by any means, but you do have to do your homework. I mean, there were times that, we call it our playbook. I would bring it back home and, study it for an hour or two at night, just because I want to be productive the next day at work. So.
Yeah, and I'll add just one thing to what Nick said. He brought priority points. It made me kind of shiver a little bit when I heard that. But I started, and we were right in the middle of football renewal. So just to go off of what Nick is saying, when you're new, you're having to find out a whole new system, right? And the best way to learn is to just jump in and do it. Pick up the phones, answer questions, talk to people. It's harsh to say, but fail early and fail often, right? Because that's how you learn, and that's how you make yourself better, in the future. You learn from, some conversations you had previously, and then it just sets you up even better for the next one you're going to have.
Yeah. And luckily we have an open book test every time, so not a closed book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said by both of you. I think I love the last point you made, that both of you made, really, in the fact that you do have to just jump in and do it. If you kind of have this nervous mindset of like, oh, I don't know, I kind of got to pace it out. Like, the best thing you can do is just really go all in and learn from your mistakes and learn from your coworkers and talk to your people you're working with and really just figure out and navigate this new place you're working in. And so I love that point. I think you made really good points on relationships as well, with your coworkers, with your superiors, and just the importance of those. And so I think that flows well with the next question. How did you guys navigate building those relationships? That can be tough to really know, like, who do I build a relationship with? How do I build it outside of the office? So share kind of how you guys navigated building those relationships.
Yeah. So the unique thing I got to be a part of was when I came up here in June. So I started in July 2021. I got introduced to a group of now my coworkers. Well, funny enough, that night, there was decided to be a group text that was started, and it's still strong to this day of 30 something people. Sorry for the green bubble people, but it's mainly all the iPhone folks. So we still try to be inclusive by all means, but that was a great way. Like, I literally took my phone and passed it around to all the people at that evening. And, to help me, I asked what department they were in just to get started. I said, hey, I'll eventually get to know your name and everything. But that way, I could really put a name to a face, even when I come back and eventually move in and start my job. So that was a great way. Also, other ways I've gotten to be involved and get to know others in the community or within, the workplaces. We have noon ball, so we play basketball at noon every day. And I've gotten to meet some other leaders and coworkers here through the athletic department. We occasionally play volleyball on Tuesdays. So trying to get up on my serve and everything there, but also it's just a great way to interact and get to know folks. But then also another little thing we have on Thursdays is occasionally about a handful or more of us do have a little mini Bible study. So we'll go meet at lunchtime and, go over the good word. So those were some of the things that I found out, or, got to be a part of the fruition and got to build those relationships, and very positive today.
That's awesome.
That's awesome stuff. Luckily here, people have been really good about reaching out to me and getting lunch.
Yeah.
For example, one-on-one lunches. Everyone's really good about popping in to your office and just saying hello, right? And say, hey, how's your weekend? How you doing? What's on your agenda? What's on your mind? And things like that. And I think it really is helpful to go beyond just work stuff, right? And dive into finding more about the person, right? Beyond just the title that they have here in the office. And so that's something that again, I probably picked up a lot from just watching and having a lot of other people come and checking on me, but I've tried to start doing the same thing and just going and checking in and asking how people are doing, how their weekends. Nick, I really want to play basketball at noon. We're actually renovating our basketball practice gym now, which I didn't know was happening right after our season. It's going on apparently the whole summer. So I'm a little bummed about that. Otherwise, I would definitely be going down there and getting some shots up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've actually taken to skiing since I moved up here. I went for the first time, and I actually had two of my colleagues. We went. There's a ski mountain just about 15 minutes from here.
Wow.
And we went one day, and no broken bones. I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm still walking. So I'd call it a success. It's a lot of fun though. And that's something new, right? And something you're able to do outside of work.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I would say has been really helpful. Just people reaching out to you and trying to get to know you beyond just your title at work, and then also doing the outdoor activities really helps as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Find a way to get some summer shots up, I guess. So gotta go find an outdoor court.
I know. Maybe I'll just head over to the BJC and
there you go.
Wait till I get kicked out or something. Who knows?
You maybe go on campus. A lot of the kids will go off. Go put some shops up at the rec.
There you go.
It's true. They're too athletic though. They're too quick.
100%.
Absolutely.
Noah's probably the one that would teach us how to get our shot up and everything.
I was just gonna say it's probably a good thing I don't attend Purdue or Penn State, because you guys would have broken ankles and probably losing a lot of 1v1 games. So let's just say it's a good thing I'm over here in Minneapolis and far from both of you. But I definitely loved both of those responses, and I think what just really stands out to me, and I think I could speak from a little bit of experience here coming to USG last June, is really just the outside of work activities. It can be easy to kind of focus so heavily on I want to build this relationship in the office and through a meeting, or through a one-on-one weekly update on what we're doing as an organization, but just kind of branching out and doing new things. Kyle, you mentioned skiing, right? I mean, maybe it's whatever it is in the local area that you're in, just kind of diving into being just involved in what the local community does. And then things like a Bible study. I mean, Nick, that's great. I don't think there's anything more valuable than finding other brothers and sisters in Christ within the workplace, especially at a secular university. And so I think there's really something special there as well. So definitely a huge part of really being in the athletic space, I think, is building those relationships outside of the workplace, and then continuing those because it is more than a job title and those things of that nature. So appreciate you guys sharing. And I think another just really tough aspect of the job transition phase is just the transient nature of it. Really just puts you in a place where you're out of touch with your Christ-centered community. It can be tough to not have a local church or to leave a local church that you were rooted in. So if you guys don't mind sharing, kind of dive in a little bit of how you have both gone about finding that local church community.
Yeah. So when I left Orlando, I had a really good church that I found down there and made a lot of close friends that continue to keep in touch with. So it's a little bit tough to leave that and come up here. I will say I came into a really good situation where someone who I work with actually invited me to go to church.
Yeah.
One of my first weeks here.
Wow.
Which was awesome. That helps a lot, right? When there's someone that you can go check out a new church with. When I was in Orlando, I didn't know Anyway, I just went and checked out churches myself. So when you have someone else, it is really, really nice. Ended up, checking out one, and then tried out another one, just to give myself a little bit of comparison, see what I liked, and if I preferred one or the other. And have ended up really, really liking this one that I actually tried out first with the one individual that I work with here. So I've been going there for, I guess, 2 probably months now, and still trying to get a little more plugged in, meeting a couple people here and there each time. But really looking forward to getting involved with small groups again. That was something that was huge for me when I was down in Orlando. I really felt that it helped ground me while I was down there. Having that faith-backed community, because obviously in the sports world, I mean, it's hectic, right? Sometimes and there's a lot of things going on. So that's one thing I'm hoping to continue on once I, can get there.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
No doubt. That's awesome. For me, it sort of goes back to sort of my testimony in a way of, when I was in school and undergrad at UNC Charlotte, I didn't really take initiative to go find a church. I more thought, and there's nothing wrong with Fellowship of Christian Athletes or Athletes in Action, but I made that my church, even though, our campus, representative there was like, Nick, go find a church. So, being a little bit more mature now, that's a process I've got to take serious, and what I always encourage young people to go about, undergrad, grad school, or even, heck, high school. So, whenever I went out to Nebraska in grad school, I sort of had that, I got my feet wet as far as what this transition was like, trying to find a church and what matched my values and really where my feet are at the time. So I really benefit my experience through that to where I was at here coming Purdue. Definitely appreciated the, churches I was at Nebraska was City Light, and then, here recently in Greenville, South Carolina. But then, made my transition up here, really took about 4 to 5 churches that I took a look at. But no, I'm sure you're familiar with Northview. So, they're definitely one of the bigger churches, here in Indiana with different campuses, and they have one here in West Lafayette that I've been fortunate to be a part of. Knew I wanted to be in a small group. So Kyle, I'm sure you'll find it here eventually. So I was really plugged in within a month or two after going, really find out, I think this is what my church home wanted to be. So I just always encourage folks, it's always going to be awkward the first time, but it's similar to our conversation today. When you come into the workplace for the first time, it's going to be nervous energy. You don't know anybody, but as long as you just have God's peace at your heart and, trust that good things are to come, that's to say, meeting your church and your neighborhood community through that realm as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, a huge part of finding a local church and the importance of it is building relationships outside of the workplace. So valuable. And I think what it does is it separates really the work-life balance. If you really are just so rooted in the office, there really is a less of a chance that you'll be able to have a good work-life balance. But if you do have, outside relationships and commitments, it can really build a healthy work-life balance. And I think too, on top of that, just the importance of having real, authentic, Christ-centered relationships. Having a Paul, having a Timothy, having a Barnabas, really just kind of that network where you have somebody that teaches you, it pours into you as a believer, then somebody that is kind of on an equal level as you, then somebody that you pour into as well. And I think only the local church provides that. So really the importance of that aspect as well. And I think too, just it can be so challenging, but really what I've seen really as an awesome part of USG is just our connections throughout really the entire country with churches in different areas. And I know, Nick, you reached out to Mikey, and he helped you kind of navigate finding churches in West Lafayette. And so just an encouragement for anybody going through a job transition that, we have those relationships and connections. I think, Kyle, you reached out to Suzanne as well. And so just using those connections and really just making it easier on yourself, because it can be difficult. There's so many choices, so many churches in one area. So which one is best fit? Obviously there's, a decision has to be made, but I think using the resources that USG offers is helpful. So I appreciate you guys sharing that. And it
Yeah,
really
Noah,
is.
do you mind if I just add on to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
What you were just saying. I have to echo that statement because the staff at USG was extremely helpful with me helping to find some different churches around the area. And also just a plug for the USG app, there's that map of all the members and where they're located, right? And there's a community right there that you can plug into. If anyone's local or maybe is from that area, I had no idea that Suzanne grew up in State College, right? And she wasn't at Penn State, but she grew up in the area, right? And I wouldn't have known that had I not obviously sought the counsel of some of the USG staff, and they pointed me in the right direction. So that was really, really great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Here you go. I'll do your Vanna White. Here's the USG app, everybody.
There we go.
Perfect. Love it. Yeah, no, I think those just really, just to highlight that as well, Kyle, of just the reality of the benefits of the app. I think just of that community aspect as well. And it's something that I think is so helpful. It is challenging. I think even for myself, speaking from the experience of moving to Minneapolis, it took me about 6 months to find a church that I actually stuck with. And it was a challenge. But I think if you really use people in your community, use your coworkers, use the USG community to really find a place that could be home for you, I think you'll benefit. And the sooner the better. I think, too, just the importance of that Christ-centered community cannot be overstated. So appreciate you guys sharing that as well. Kyle and Nick, how have you guys both been bold with your faith in Christ in your new roles?
It's definitely a tough one. Just as far as the adjective of bold, but I don't really know as far as a bold, but really this, for such a transition, the topic that we have, this maintain that relationship with Christ is, I would say, ever more important. And that is bold in of itself. We live in in different world at times. You come to a new area, you don't know what it's going to look like as far as if there's going to be a ton of churches around or, just a select few. So I would say really the only boldness I've had is staying plugged in with my community, with USG during this type of transition, but also, really just staying close to God. And, I think trying to think of what my dad said at one point. It's a phrase that's always stuck with me, but, it goes along the lines of, listening to God more than anything, because he's got to, paint your footsteps. And Kyle definitely, notion that even previous in the conversation of you're going to be put where you needed, not necessarily where you maybe have wanted at times. So not the, most all encompassing of answer, but I would say, during my 10 months, that's sort of what I've leaned on.
Well said. Very well said.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that makes me think, which is great. Being bold in my faith, the first thing that comes to my mind is I love listening to music, and sometimes I'll come into the office in the morning and just throw on some Christian music to start the morning off while I'm going through emails. Have that play in the background, and sometimes people might walk in, they might hear what's going on, but that's something I like to do. And awesome. Whether it leads to a discussion, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, right? But maybe then a seed has been planted, right? You never know. The other thing I would say is there's a student athlete Bible study
awesome.
that's actually done, and I've gotten to go one time, and obviously it's a student athlete Bible study, and I am not a student athlete, but I work for the athletic department, and I think it's really cool because part of the reason why I'm here is to serve our student athletes and prepare them for a lifetime of impact, and to be alongside of the journey is really cool. So to see these student athletes that are out there and reading the Bible and discussing their faith, that's really encouraging, and I love seeing that. So just to be a face in those discussions, in those meetings, it's been really neat to get to know some of them, and show that I support you 100%, right, in doing this. It's not something that I wasn't a part of a Bible study when I was a student, going to undergrad. So, I have a lot of respect for them, taking the time out. Obviously, there's a lot of time intensive aspects to playing a sport, right? And they're making time, putting time aside to make sure they're keeping their faith strong. So I love that. And so I want to keep going and keeping showing face and just learning from them too.
Absolutely.
So, to sort of bounce off Kyle there, and sort of goes with my answer. There's a book by John Gordon called The Carpenter.
Great book.
And I don't want to spoil anything. Highly recommend it. Easy book. But he has basically an all-encompassing quote that says to love, serve, and care for others and yourself, essentially. And I think that's sort of what Kyle and I get to be a part of, and really us as Christians as a whole in our workplaces.
Absolutely.
It just so happens we work in a nonprofit world in a way of trying to fundraise and provide impactful time for 18 to 24-year-olds who happen to be a student athlete. But similar to what Kyle said, and what we've gotten to mature as young Christian men is, I happen to be a fundraiser. I happen to be a Christian I am a Christian that happens to be a fundraiser. That's what we're called on in the world here, as far as where God has placed us. So I definitely think the love, serve, and care aspect is something Kyle and I try to live by each and every day going into the office.
Yeah. So well said by both of you. And I think what we often think, boldness in Christ, like, what does that mean? Does that mean I run around to everybody's desk and say, hey, if you were to die tonight, where would you go? Like, no, sometimes that's maybe not the best way to approach it. I think you both really painted a beautiful picture of what it means to be bold with your faith. I mean, simple things, Kyle, like playing worship music out loud plants a seed. It shows others really, where you're at in your faith. And even just those little tidbits of, hey, I'm going to a Bible study with student athletes. Would you like to come? You're not forcing, you're inviting. I think even just like you said, Nick, just inviting or living that life where you're serving others and yourself and loving others and yourself. I think there's something powerful about the way you live your life. I love Acts chapter 1, verse 8. Jesus says to his disciples, you will be my witnesses in all of Judea and Samaria. And in that present day, Judea and Samaria were the areas closest located to Israel that weren't a Jewish region. So it was people outside of the old covenant. They weren't really a part of the promise initially. However, with Christ, obviously that changed. And so the disciples, the apostles, were the witnesses to who Jesus was, who God was in those unreached areas. And so I think for us as believers in sports, we are the individuals who know the promise, who share the promise, who witness Christ in the unreached area of sports. So well said by both of you. You guys are great representatives of Christ, and I appreciate your boldness. That's huge, really huge. And lastly, Kyle and Nick, what advice would you give a young professional in the industry who's undergoing a job transition?
Yeah, I would say first off, take a deep breath, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can just be so stressful when you're looking to apply for another job and you don't know where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're going to end up running your head against the wall with getting no's, and you're not going to get interviews. Sometimes you might get a first interview and maybe you won't get a second interview, right? And when I got this one at Penn State, I was really fortunate to get it. But there was a lot. There was 3 interviews to get this job. And a lot of times you're going to hear a lot of no's. I sure did when I was first starting to apply.
Yeah.
But what I would say to that is that there's going to be a door that's going to open, and have faith in that. Sometimes, what we have planned in our minds isn't God's timing. God works on his own timing. And if you get a no to a job, maybe it's timing, right? Maybe that's just not the place where you're meant to be at that moment in your life. And maybe it's going to take jumping around and doing something different. And that's going to prepare you maybe to come back and get that job in the future that you want. So in wrapping that up, sometimes God doesn't give you what you want, but he'll give you what you need.
Yeah.
And he'll put you in the right position, because he's working behind the scenes and preparing you for where he wants you to be in a future career. So I would say, work really hard, keep your head down, stay the course. But you're going to know that you're going to end up where you should.
Yeah.
And that's what I would leave people with.
That's huge.
Oh, I have to go. I mean, that was perfect. Nah. But as far as what I would tell my younger self is, similar to what Kyle was saying, a deep breath, but being patient.
Yeah.
He had mentioned there's a 2-month break, in part of his hiring process. Now, is that typical? Not really, but there very much could be bumps in the road that may not even expect. So along with the process, to stay patient, it could take some time. It could be instant.
Yeah.
As far as if it's not going the exact way you wanted, you're hearing a lot of no's. I mean, that happened to me. It happened to Kyle. It's happened to anybody in the industry. I'd be very shocked to hear at least if 95% have not heard more no's than yeses.
Right.
You're not alone. I always advise, talking to a mentor. I've had great folks with USG and my other stops along the road, really just to keep me grounded. And I guess one thing, to sort of put your armor on from pride in a way, just because it does bring a source of entitlement. I mean, we all work our tails off. This is not an easy industry to get plugged in, initially, or really even that second job afterwards. So making sure this, stay the course. Don't let the enemy bring pride into you. I mean, I can't say it better than what Kyle was saying. God's going to have you where you need to be. As far as my story of Purdue, I mean, I got rejected. I was part of a final interview process for a job. Got denied in the morning, and then Purdue gave me a shout by that afternoon.
Wow.
Like that's just like one of an example that I can, bring hope to folks during those types of times. But yeah, be patient. Try to, stay the course. Don't let the enemy bring pride in your heart. Stay close with your family, friends, or, some mentors there, and things will work out for the best at the end there, I would say, would be advice to my younger self.
Great points.
Yeah, well said by both of you. And I think what I really took away, even just from both of those responses, is don't have huge expectations that are outside of what God may want for you. I think sometimes we do that. We kind of plan our course, whether it be in a job or in a relationship or in, whatever your plans are for the weekend. And we kind of lose sight of, hey, God is actually sovereign. He's in control, and I can trust him. The best things in my life have come out of God's will playing out. I mean, for example, I was a 4-year manager at Butler University. I was 2 summers with the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, I was full go sport industry. Nothing was going to stop that. Like it was all in. And the Lord really pulled me into ministry. And I think that is, a story that I'm so thankful for. I wouldn't be on this podcast with you both if it wasn't for the Lord's calling and for the obedience that he gave me to be able to do that. And so I think just even your guys' examples, I think are testimonies of the Lord's will playing out as well. And I think for anybody listening, you may not land exactly where you think you should or where you desire. And that's honestly a good thing. God may be opening up another door that better impacts his kingdom or better impacts your life as a follower of Christ. And so just really keeping that at the front of mind. And then Nick, you mentioned pride. Pride is scary. It's something that really pulls us away from God. And I think we can get pride in sports really in 2 ways. One, if we do land the position that we really desire, get pride of, that was all me, or, look at me at, Notre Dame or USC and whatever, school you're at. Or we can have pride if we don't land the position we want because of, hey, I deserve that. Like I'm better than what those people thought, or I'm better and God should have put me there, or whatever it is. And so I think keeping a level head, trusting that God is sovereign, and regardless of whether you're in that high status of position that you desire or whether you don't, either way, you're still seen as a child of God. God sees you as a saint in the blood of Jesus, and then that's your title, that's your identity beyond any job title. So great points by both of you there, and I just really appreciate those.
And I would just say, like, another thing I would say is embrace that unknown. Like it's just, I see it now as a special moment because we're talking about the question as far as awaiting and undergoing a transition.
Yeah,
they're 2 different avenues in a way, but so similar if we're cutting it down the middle. Sort of embrace that unknown. There's not a lot of times you'll get to experience this. So, be thankful for the growth that you will have. And that way, when you're in a Kyle, Nick, or Noah's position, and as we progress in this industry, you can be a mentor to those folks in that time and have a sense of understanding and grace. I mean, it's not an easy process, being on the other side of interviewing folks and having to tell them they unfortunately didn't make it. But, having that Christ-like heart for them and, whatever things they may be going through. So just wanted to add that nugget in there as well.
Yeah. I love that. Be grateful, right? Have perspective. Perspective is important.
It is.
Some people might not get an interview, or might be struggling a little more to get some together. So be grateful for where you're at. Love that.
Huge. Yeah, great points, guys. I think perspective and gratitude are really two of the keys to happiness. I mean, I've tried to remind myself of that in life in general. If we have good perspective, we have gratitude for what God has given us, where we are, life becomes very enjoyable. So well said by both of you. And Kyle and Nick, thank you for joining today. It's a pleasure to have this discussion with both of you. And we wish you well as you continue serving in the Big Ten Conference.
Sure. Hey, Nashville brothers, can't take us away. So.
Absolutely. Good seeing you both.
If you want to get involved with Uncommon Sports Group and the mission that we are on to help you navigate the sport industry as followers of Christ, apply for our academy on our website at uncommonsg.org. That's uncommonsg.org. Be sure to catch new episodes of the Uncommon Podcast every Thursday at midnight Eastern Time, as well as the full video episodes on our YouTube channel. Until next time, we pray that you will strive to be uncommon by glorifying the name of God in whatever you may do. See you next week.